thinking I had like everything, my day was going to be smooth and easy and all planned out. And then, like I was just saying, it ended up being a weird day where I'm just like juggling and struggling more things than I thought I was going to be doing. Part of which involves being a dog dad to a new puppy. So that is keeping me on my toes. But that's just part of it, right?
That's what I hear. Yeah.
Yeah, man. It's been a good week. How are you doing, brother?
I'm good, man.
Awesome.
We're ready for this game today.
What? Oh, there's an event. There's a game, you say?
There's a sport ball event today.
Ooh, that's fun. Yeah, no, as we're recording this, we are prepping for the Super Bowl, which is also part of why I was running late this morning, or this afternoon, I should say. As we're recording this, I am cooking something for a little get together that my friends are having tonight. I'm also cooking something for a bake sale that a school group has got going on tomorrow. So I just it's been stupid this morning. I bit off more than I could chew, but that's okay.
So careful about using the S word. You got to call it the big game so you don't get sued.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, we can't call it that. It's the superb owl game, as my cousin likes to put it. So, just out of curiosity, who you got on this game, man? Who you think's going to take it?
Well, so this is a tough one because I'd really like the Bengals to win.
Yeah,
because it's the Bengals.
Yeah,
and I like rooting for the underdog in any given situation, typically. But man, I don't know. They're really going to have everything working right to beat the Rams.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I'm kind of like you. I've got not that I have actual money put on the game because I don't. But if I were a betting man, I would place my money on the Bengals just because I want them to win. I would like that Cinderella story, and I think they're a good team. They've got.
They are. Yeah. No, they wouldn't be here if they weren't.
Yep.
The Rams defense.
It's stout. Yeah, it is.
It's gonna make it tough.
It's one of those situations like I genuinely don't have a dog in the fight, so I'm just going to sit back and hope for a good game. My fingers crossed. Hope nobody gets hurt at the end of the day. So that's my plans for the evening. But first, we got to get through this little thing we like to call the Southern Fried Geekery podcast. I shouldn't say get through. That sounds like it's a chore. It's not a chore. It's a privilege. It's a benefit, an honor. It's the thing that I look forward to just about the most every week. And this is, if I'm not mistaken, episode 116. I think is what we're on. I say that questioningly with hesitation in my voice.
It's definitely not 116.
216. You're right. See, I even when I get it right, I get it wrong. It is episode 216. As usual, I am hesitantly excited for this ball game. Caleb Alexander McKenzie,
Matt Trogdon,
and we are joining you once again. Start kicking off a brand new week. And if you're wondering what this little thing is, maybe you can't tell from the title, or maybe you're new here. We're just a couple of guys who sit around our little world here in Central Arkansas, and we met because we love comics, and we bonded because we love sequential art and superheroes and stories told in a visual medium. And we all got together and we would talk about these things, and we're like, well, hell, this is fun. Maybe other people would like this. And so we started this here little podcast, which has gone strong for, like I said, 216 episodes. Normally we are joined by our brother Craig, but he is still out taking care of a family illness. So we send him lots of love. And hopefully he'll be back with us before, sooner rather than later. Hopefully those things get worked out. But other than that, just keep him in your heart, as it were, because he could use all the positivity and good thoughts that you can send his way. But for now, let's get right into this thing, Matt. I want you to drop we'll call it a short stack. Think of it like Sunday morning pancakes. Drop a short stack on me of things that you've read this week.
So my short stack, first off, Marvel, a Marvel event, as it says, Devil's Reign number 4 of 6. Talked about this a few times. Still, the writer is Chip Zdarsky, the artist is Marco Cicchetto, and the colorist is Marcio Menez. I'm loving this, man. I want this to go on for a while, and I really want out of this. I'm really hoping Chip Zdarsky keeps writing something involving Doc Ock. because I'm really liking what Doc Ock is doing in this, and the way Zdarsky is writing him, and I'm loving the way Chichetto is illustrating him.
Yeah,
the way the way he is cartooning Doc Ock, Dr. Octopus is great. This is amazing, and I want more of it. Second on my short stack is from AWA Upshot, The Fourth Man, from Jeff McComsey, Mike Deodato Jr., and Lee Lowrich. This is, as a reminder, based on a true story about two rival car dealerships, and murder ensues. This second issue I enjoyed more than the first, so the story is really gathering steam. So this is only I believe 4 issues. Yes, 4 issues. So I'm really excited to see where this goes, because after I finish it, I want to look up the true story that this is based on and see what that's all about. But regardless, I recommend this one. This one's a lot of fun.
That's got to be ripe for like a true crime podcast. Like with as popular as those things are, like I feel like AWA would do really well if they would, do something similar to what Marvel has done and told their stories in podcast form. Because that just seems like it'd be like right up your alley as far as like listening to true crime stuff.
If I can find it, this story, the true story in podcast form, I will definitely listen to it.
Right.
Because that is something I listen to on the regular. A third of my short stack is from Marvel, and this is from the 90s.
Oh.
Yeah, I went back. I found a series. This is from 1997. 3-issue series, Conan the Barbarian, The Usurper. This one is written by Chuck Dixon. The pencils layouts were done by Steve Lieber, and the inks were done by Klaus Janson.
Nice.
This is a very young Steve Lieber in his career. I went and looked this up as one of the very first things he did. And I will say that he grew a lot as an artist from this.
Right.
Interestingly, this cover, and I actually looked to see if it had been acknowledged. This cover looks like a Slain ripoff. I'm sorry, this pose that Conan is doing with his sword is right out of Slain.
Right.
As in 2000 AD. Maybe that's a coincidence. I mean, we are just talking about someone swinging a sword. There's only so many ways you can illustrate that. But regardless, it was an experience to read, I'll say.
An experience. I have thoughts. I've read that. I don't know that I've enjoyed it. And it's been a long time since I've read it. I'm curious though, because it's been forever since I've looked at it. I know it's a young Steve Lieber, but how is the inking on it? Because that's one thing. He is such a, not Lieber, but who was the inker on that? Sorry, I just went.
Klaus Janson.
Yeah, Klaus is such a heavy-handed inker that a lot of times it's one of those things like we'll talk about amongst ourselves every once in a while. There's a lot of people out there who are quote unquote Frank Miller fans and John Romita Jr. fans that are actually really just Klaus Janson fans, because he is such a heavy-handed inker. He tends to like overshadow everything. He can ink out the original artist, and he's, I'm going to use air quotes, quote unquote, bad about doing that. There's a lot of times if you go see the original pencils of, say, something that Frank Miller did before Klaus Janson got a hold of it, looks completely different. Did it feel that way to you as far as his inks on Lieber, or?
That I couldn't speak to that unless I saw the pencils, frankly.
Okay.
And again, this is so early in Steve Lieber's career. Steve Lieber's artwork now looks much different than this.
Yeah.
In several different ways, given layout, the cartooning and the way the figures look and move do not feel like Steve Lieber as today.
As far as his definitive style, yeah.
Yeah. So now, how much of that has to do with Klaus Janson? Yeah, I mean, I couldn't speak to that without seeing the pencils.
Yeah,
I wouldn't.
That's fair.
Guess.
That is a fair assessment. Well, nice. Well, I did some reading this week as well. Since you started with Marvel, or you ended with Marvel, I should say. I'll start. Well, technically, you ended with Conan. I'll start there though. I uh, I read the latest issue of the Thing, the recent series that's going on right now, being written by Walter Mosley, drawn by Tom Riley, with colors by Jordi Belair. And I got the variant cover, which is not something I do very often, but it's Joshua Cassara, and I thought it
Oh,
was fun.
nice.
So I went ahead and picked it up. Um, Dude, there's no way this mini series doesn't make it on my top 10 list for the year of 2022 when it's going to wrap up. It's just excellent. If you like Thing stories, if you like just fun, ridiculous, crazy adventure series, this is going to be right up your alley. They're just going no holds barred, making up stuff as they go along, just being and they're having fun with it. It's just vibrant and young, and it puts the Thing in some um, awkward situations where he's got to figure what's going on with him and Alicia and where he's going in the world and his place amongst everything as a hero. So fun stuff. And again, I can't, if you've read Walter Mosley, then you should know the tone and the theme of this book. If you've never read Walter Mosley, you got to get on that, because Walter Mosley is phenomenal. um and second on my short stack is a little book that I've been really, really enjoying from Image Comics. And that is none other than Echolands. And this is the last book in the first chapter. This is written in part by J.H. Williams III and Hayden Blackman. They co-created this. And I think we read the first issue. I've been kind of keeping up with this on the show as we're going along. Obviously, J.H. Williams does all the art. Dave Stewart does the colors, and Todd Klein is on the letters. A couple things about this book. Again, if you've never read it, it is horizontal. It's drawn and written in a landscape format, and it is absolutely gorgeous. It is some of the most striking art that you can see by picking up a book off the shelf right now. And if you're wondering, oh well, what style is it in? There's not a definitive answer to that question, because it's literally in all of them. I don't understand how J.H. Williams operates. Like, the man's not human. He just can do, like, he can, there are 7 different, like, definitive schools of art in this book. There are hyper detailed stuff. There's stuff that lends itself well towards fantasy. There's like Bernie Wrightson level horror. I mean, he draws a Frankenstein in here that is just insane. And then there's like old school Archie level cartooning, and all of them exist in the same time, depending on what character that there is. And he just goes ham with it, man. It's so freaking ridiculous. There's some Kirby elements to it. Like, this is just, I don't know if it's fair to say that this is quote unquote magnum opus because he's J.H. Williams III, but this is like him just flexing on everybody, letting everybody know who he is. And it's fun. The story is incredibly fun. Just they're bouncing in and out of universes. The young girl who stole the crystal and is caught between a rock and a hard place, between fate and a wizard. Just kind of giving you this giant fantasy, multi-universal experience in the book. And then last but certainly not least is book 4 of The Human Target, another book that I've been absolutely loving, not only because the story is intriguing, but just because of Greg Smallwood's art, man. Greg Smallwood could just draw like landscapes, and I would be like, I'd buy it. He could charge like $6 for like a stick figure, just draw a day in the life of kind of thing, and I'd pick it out because he's so ridiculously good. And his colors on this book, has a very retro vibe to it. His shading, the angles with which he draws things, that just sets the tone of the mood. In this particular issue, you have got the Human Target teaming up with this character named Ice, who is a very attractive white-haired young woman with, as you might expect, like ice powers. She can freeze things, and they are getting into some shenanigans with Ted Cord, billionaire playboy philanthropist, also moonlights as a superhero. And so they are tracking down whoever this is, more leads that they have on who might have poisoned the human target. And, it's a mix of he has nothing else to lose and he wants to have a good time, but he's unsure about himself as to why why he's not just like, oh, I only have like 10 days left to live. Why am I not just sleeping with everything I can, being drunk the whole time? Why am I putting so much effort into railing against this instead of just, leaning into debauchery? Because it's making him think about who he is and where he came from and what legacy he's going to be leaving behind. But that doesn't stop him from, knocking some boots with ice at some point. So, because he is a suave sumbitch, as it were. So, that's my short stack. Check this out if you haven't, man. It's worth looking. It's worth looking up. Worth looking at Greg Smallwood's art, just in and of itself. Speaking of Greg Smallwood, did you hear about the kind of kerfluffle that went on this past week involving Greg Smallwood?
I did hear about that. Sure did.
Yeah. So apparently he's writing drawing a mini series for the Electra Red, Black, White, and Red book, and somebody at Marvel took it upon themselves to, quote unquote, fix his art, which it's Greg Smallwood. So how do you fix his art? And they showed the before and afters, and it was not good. Like the changes that they made did not work. They did just small details in the face, giving pupils to people that really stood out and made them look weird as far as Greg's style goes. Now Marvel has since come out and issued an apology about that, and they have said, hey, when this is collected in the original form and going on digital, it won't have those changes. Somebody made this call and they shouldn't have, so they did a mea culpa, but don't touch people's art. The surprising thing is they didn't tell him that they were doing it. So that was what kind of, I say surprising, but I don't know that it's all that surprising.
It would be interesting if someone would come out and admit to making that call and why they did so.
Oh,
Also, wasn't he the one that said that he got an offer? I thought this was him, that he got an offer to work with another publisher to do a series, and he turned it down because they sold some of his artwork as an NFT without his permission.
That might have been. I didn't hear about that. If so, kudos to him for doing that.
I thought that's actually what I thought that's what you were going to talk about.
No, I didn't hear about that. That's crazy. And like I said, good for him for standing on those laurels there. Number one, even if you're not, like, I can't stand the concept of NFTs anyway. I think it's a grift. I think it's a scam. Same with most crypto things. It's people apply value to a non-existent thing to make themselves richer and at the expense of other people. And I don't like it, but that's just my personal opinion. But even if you don't share that opinion, if it's somebody else's work and you create an NFT of it and sell it without giving them the profit, that's called theft. It's immoral and unethical. So good for him for giving them the middle finger and refusing to work with them, because don't do that. Why would you do that?
Yeah. Yeah. And I may be wrong. It may not have been Smallwood, but that's what I thought I read this morning. Somebody had posted that. I thought it was him.
Well, even if it's not Smallwood, good for whoever that was. Good for pushing back against that.
Yeah.
It could probably be, he's got bills to pay. He's got mouths to feed. So I'm sure he could use the paycheck that came with that. So in some level, he's turning down money, but some money you need to turn down.
Yeah.
One might say it's a Herculean feat, or a test of strength, becoming of the Hulk. As I just shoehorn a segue in there.
Yeah. Okay.
So we got together and read our little roundtable book this week. That, man, I just really, really enjoyed. For those of you who are new to the show, Matt and I and Craig, when he's on the show, we all read the same book every week, and we put our heads together and we talk about it, discuss its merits, what we liked, what we disliked, just to get a feel for each other's taste. And we try our best not to discuss it before, because we want it to be kind of, real and raw, and even, especially, honestly, it makes for better radio when we disagree with each other, because it opens up a can of worms, so to speak, to really dive into what we think works and what we think doesn't work. But I don't know, man. I got a feeling we're not going to have that on this episode. I got a feeling that we both probably really, really enjoyed this book. I'm curious to know what you think about it is. So the book we decided to read this week is Maestro World War M. Now, this is written by the great Peter David, the Hulk scribe himself, with art by Herman Peralta. Jesus Berthoff did some excellent colors on it, and Pascal Ferry did the opening art scene because it's kind of split in between two parts, and Matt Hollingsworth gave a little color assist on that one. And then shout out to VC's Ariana Marr, who I'm seeing more and more in different books doing the letters. This is the third iteration of the Maestro series that Peter David decided to tackle to give kind of an end, or some, I don't know, like I don't really know you can say an end. It gives some more context to what happened in his previous Maestro stories, like how the Hulk got set up, how he became the Maestro. Like he gives a little insight into the world beforehand. And as we were talking about last week, man, when this first got pitched, when I first read the synopsis and previews, man, I just really didn't think I was going to like it. Like I thought it was going to be one of those things that just kind of, this is better left to the imagination. And I like the fact that we're not answering all the questions, and that there wasn't a clear picture to how the world, I guess the 616 as we knew it came to an end, and how the Hulk turned evil and this persona took over. But boy, was I wrong. Like just flat out wrong. I have enjoyed the ever loving hell out of these series, mostly because nothing like Peter David's imagination just ran rampant and wild with this. And he is throwing everything against the wall, and what is sticking is awesome. And he's playing with characters that we know as tangential to the Hulk, to the world that he lives in, to his legacy, and he's just doing some really cool stuff with them. And man, the art team that he has on this, to follow, George Perez, which was the original artist on the Peter David Hulk stuff, to follow in his footsteps, to stand in his shadow for a little bit, you got to have some, you got to be on your stuff, because that's got to be a lot of pressure. And I think they're doing it, man. I think they're winning the game. They are delivering some wonderful, wonderful sequentials, to the point that I would love to own some of this art. So I'm curious, as we get into this, kind of what your 30,000 foot view of this first book was, the first tip off to this latest chapter.
That was great. I love this one. I've liked this whole Maestro run. Peter David's just doing an excellent job with this on all levels. And Herman Peralta, I've loved his art.
Mm-hmm.
The art in this book looked different from all the other books. And I wonder if it's just because he's inking his own stuff, and he had somebody inking his pencils in the past. That's something that I would be interested to go back and take a look at, because the art looks distinctively different, but it's still Herman Peralta. It
felt a little crisper. Like as I was looking at it, there's a little bit more detail laid in there. And part of me wonders if he just leveled up. But yeah, I noticed that too. And I missed on the opening page that Pascal Ferry drew the opening scene. So when I opened that up, I was like, oh no, they what's going on? This is not Herman Peralta. And it just jarred me for a second. Not that there was anything wrong with the art by any means. It just, I wasn't expecting it. It took me by surprise. So, but I don't know, man, like you said, it looked and it felt kind of crisper. And yeah, he definitely changed up something with his style. So why don't we get into it and talk a little bit about what the book is, and what it's doing. So each of these Maestro books have kind of focused on a character, a villain, quote unquote, if you will, that was connected to the Hulk in the past tense, and connected to Maestro on some level. Obviously, the first time we got Hercules. He was the foil. You can't really call him a villain, but he was the foil to Maestro, to the Hulk. Then we got Dr. Doom, and we've got AIM. And this book, it takes a look at a character that for me is one of it is the quintessential Hulk villain, right? It's of course the Abomination. We haven't seen Emil Blonsky show up in this world that I know of, or that I can at least remember. And so I was always kind of curious what he was doing, and where he was at. But we know that AIM had him locked down. They had him on ice, so to speak, and they were keeping him in a almost like the Matrix. There were a couple different Matrix references in this series. At one point, Blonsky takes the red pill to show him what's going on in real life, and so as they were keeping him in this world, they were or in this level of stasis, so to speak. He was envisioning himself as kind of a Russian agent, a Russian general. He had a wife and a family, and in this world, he had kidnapped Bruce Banner and was basically trying to torture Bruce Banner because Bruce can't transform in this vision that he had going on, and he was keeping him for information and making him basically work for the Russian government. But something happens in the midst of all this, and all of a sudden, this character named Maestro shows up and starts whipping all kinds of ass. And we get some history in this, and we find out that as the Maestro in this world is talking to this vision of Bruce Banner, he reminds Bruce, or he tells Bruce flat out and firsthand that Blonsky killed my wife at one point, and then reaches over, and the woman who was helping Blonsky this entire time, kind of his right hand woman, also who is his wife, just reaches over and snaps her neck and returns the favor. Just the brutality in this opening sequence was crazy. And about that time, old man MODOK shows up, really just to let Blonsky know, okay, here's what's actually happening. None of this was real. Like, your wife wasn't real. Nothing's the way you know it. You're actually buried underneath the rubble of an AIM compound, and here's what's going on. And you've been asleep for decades, and everything you know is gone, and it's a wasteland. So it's time to wake up. You need to go stop the Maestro. And wake up he does. And he wakes up in the remnants of Hollywood. In fact, it's hilarious because the Hulk has taken the Hollywood sign and it just says Hulk now. And so he's walking around the Santa Monica Pier, trying to see just this broken vestiges of the world that he once knew. All of this is rushing back to him. And it's a strange moment because I am not used to seeing the Abomination or Emil Blonsky in kind of a contemplative state. Mm-hmm. But this has all shocked him and jarred him so much. At one point, he just walks down to the Santa Monica Pier and he just sits down. Like it's too much for him to process. He's overwhelmed and he's broken a little bit because remember, he just lost his wife, and then found out seconds later that his wife wasn't real. So there's a lot of things happening. But as he's sitting here, staring down at the water, just like I said, having this really contemplative moment, these figures come busting out of the water. These Atlantean beings shoot up, and they are there to capture him. He's like, "What are you doing?" And they're like, "Nope, we're bringing you in. We've gotten our orders to take you down, and we're gonna pull you out of all of this." And he's like, "Well, I didn't do anything. How'd y'all even know I was here? Like, I just woke up 5 seconds ago." And about that time, much to my delight, I just got really giddy when this happened. Namor. This world's version of Namor comes busting out of the water and says, "Hey guys, time out. There's been a misunderstanding. You weren't supposed to catch him. You were supposed to catch the Hulk, who, by the way, goes as Maestro now. I don't know who you are, but we're after the wrong people. So no harm, no foul. Of course, but you can't just do that. You can't just send your dudes after Blonsky and let him know all of this is going on without some type of recompense." And now that Namor has said, "Hey, they were supposed to capture the Hulk," that he needs to go, like he wants to team up. He wants to team up with Namor. Like he just realized, hey, like the universe just fed me an ally. So Namor gives him the quote unquote red pill, lets him breathe underwater, and they go down to I'm assuming whatever's left over of Atlantis, where they can kind of work together and plot. Meanwhile, all this is going down. You got to remember, in the last mini series that we saw, Maestro just went ahead and just whipped the shit out of Dr. Doom, which was really cool. Like, as a little fanboy moment, I was just like giddy. And so he's back in his compound with all of his, his yes men and what have you. And they're like, "Well, did you kill Dr. Doom?" And he's like, "Well, no, he got away." And, "Where did he go?" "Well, probably back to Latveria." which is true. That's, he's got him pegged. Doom did in fact go back to Latveria and to recover. Now, how much he can recover, who knows? Because he's wheelchair bound at this point. And it's weird, but he's not dead. So like, you can't count Doom out. Doom's greatest weapon is always going to be his mind, right? So even though he is a little bit of a broken person, the fact that he escaped is we're gonna see this again. Like, Peter David's not gonna just let him sit on the sidelines for too much longer, because there's too much at stake. And really, at the end of this story, you start to see all the machinations come together. One of the best moments that really pulls this into Future Imperfect is you start to see some of those characters that you met in Future Imperfect show up, and get fleshed out a little bit, including Rick Jones's granddaughter. Rick Jones in this world is an old man. He's demented. He doesn't know where he's at from moment to moment. And his granddaughter that we met in Future Imperfect is taking care of him and trying to set things up, and she's beginning to put together the resistance that we see her put together. We see culminate later on in the world. And it is great to see those, like this is all coming to a head now. And so it's really cool to see all the seeds that were planted in this world years ago start to bear fruit, and give us a taste of what's to come. And he's putting all the players in line. It's like setting up a chessboard. And the book ends really, this first issue ends with a little taste of what's to come, so to speak. We get some new characters. Maestro can't trust anybody around him, and that's like, Maestro's not the good guy in this series, and so it's kind of strange to be low-key rooting for him, because he's just a terrible person. But the people around him are slowly betraying him, including his vizier, who is teaming up and is working as a spy for Namor, for the last king in this area. And Namor's got an ace up his sleeve, or at least he thinks he does. There is a figure, and I'm not going to spoil it, from Hulk's past, from Namor's past, we'll just say from the golden age of Marvel, that he's got hidden, that has survived, and is an incredibly powerful being that he has been keeping in stasis, and he unleashes him on the Hulk. And the battle between the two of them damn near burns what's left of the world down. Like this would, just so incredibly impactful that it leaves craters throughout the Maestro's kingdom. Just lays wreckage to entire cityscapes. So that's where kind of the book ends. And man, I got goosebumps during the last few pages of this book, because I love the legend of that character. I love that character. The individual who is brought out of stasis to fight Maestro is one of my, like, as far as the golden age of Marvel goes, one of my favorites. If you've ever read any of the Defenders stuff, plays a really strong role in that, or the Invaders, not the Defenders. So what did you think? Did I leave anything out? Drop some of your feelings on the book.
No, I mean, I thought it was great. I mean, it really feels like this is the beginning, very much feels like this is the beginning of the end of this storyline that, this new Maestro series started off on. So everything the story has been very, very cohesive, easy to read, easy to follow, makes a lot of sense. It's just a great example of very, very good storytelling. So it's just been really fun and easy to read. The whole thing has, and I recommend it to everybody. I mean, anybody asks me, one of the books to read on the shelf, I recommend Maestro, because it's been done so well. So I'm really looking forward to see how this wraps up, because the cunningness of Maestro is just so good. So them thinking they're going to get the drop on him, and that they're manipulating him, I'm like, no, this isn't going to work out.
Yeah. Well, and at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter if they do. Like, even if their plans like work out, as far as we know, that, to a point, this being is indestructible. So even if they do outsmart him and they work him into a corner, like we're talking about the one person on earth that can punch his way out of anything. And we know from hindsight, because of the way the book was written and because we have Future Imperfect, that the only person who can stop him is himself.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, it's one of those really cool things. Like you see all of these master manipulators working overtime to do everything. And it's funny, like you have to sit back and laugh because it's not going to bear fruit. And so it's really great seeing Peter David like work up all of these things and work everybody into a frenzy and just lay out these really well laid plans. And as you're, just with the foresight of, oh, this is going to end really badly. And you just have to laugh, man. You just have to laugh at it. It's so good. What I'm really impressed about is the fact that, creativity to a point is a strange thing. And you have these legendary creators who achieve amazing things in a limited window. And then who, as they age, they go on to write other things that aren't as good. Like there's the magic that's not there. And Peter David has not lost his touch. Like he is still writing something that is just as vibrant, just as exciting, just as enticing as he did all those years ago, when, long-term Hulk storyteller. And that's another thing too. You think about writers like Dan Slott, who spent so much time on Spider-Man, that he had some really good stuff on Spider-Man, but he wrote so much of it that, like, I don't think he has any more Spider-Man stories in him. And Peter David wrote so much Hulk that it could very easily have been the case that he's like, I just don't have anything left to do with this character. But he does, like, and he's laying it all out right here. Now, part of me wonders if this is going to be the last time he ever touches the character, or what he's going to do with it. But man, if this is it, like, imagine ending on a higher note. I don't know if it's possible. It
feels like to me, it feels like he's not trying to, Peter David's writing, that is he's not trying to outdo himself from his previous work. He's just continuing it. It just feels like he's, making a easy to follow story with compelling characters in it. And it's not, the storyline's not super outrageous, complicated, hard to follow.
Right.
Maestro's not fighting legions of threats from outer space. It's just, him taking his enemies on one by one in very compelling ways. It just feels like Peter David's just sticking to his core strengths, and he's not trying to outdo himself, which whenever people go back to the well with their previous work, it seems like that happens way too often. They're like, well, I got to make this one feel bigger than when I did this last. It doesn't feel like he's trying to do that. He just feels like he's, continuing to add to the mythos,
right,
without competing with himself.
It's working so well. Part of me, like, so yeah, I would love to hear from him in an interview, just kind of how he went through the process of creating these stories and working the plots, how much he worked backwards in a sense, because with Future Imperfect and arguably with the end with George Perez's story, we know we know where the starting point is, we know where the end point is, and he really just gets to grab a handful of characters and scatter them throughout a limited time and figure out the formula, like figure out the connective tissues. And I'm fascinated by that, right? Like, it's kind of like the Hellboy universe now. So Mike Mignola ended his Hellboy stuff. Like, it's over as far as the story goes. Like, it's not going to go beyond itself. That world has a bookend. But now he's writing these little short stories going back in time and just filling in and fleshing out some stuff that he laid seeds to and just never played with. And that's got to be a cool concept. Like, getting to just like having that framework and getting to play with the things, knowing where you have to go, and just, kind of, I think of it as working like a bell curve. So what can I do from point A to point B to make this stuff fun, but also get back to the same spot? And that's a weird concept. And I wonder how hard that was for him. And I wonder if he, and this is just, I would love to interview the man. I wonder if in doing so, he wanted to change anything, like if he had a thought of other things, or wished that he had done little tweaks to the end game to give himself a different out. I mean, all of those are just speculative things that as I'm reading this, as I'm thinking about the craft of writing and I'm thinking about the stories that Peter David has told, I want to crawl into his brain for a little bit, which is, for me, for somebody who loves this stuff and who loves the people that make this stuff, that's just fun. I'm fascinated by how these individuals' brains work as professional storytellers and professional legend makers.
Yeah. Well, and to all you aspiring writers out there, let's remember that Peter David got his start at Marvel by working in the mailroom.
Yeah.
So, this is hardly a guy that was in the cards for a great writing career, but he made it happen just by he went for it. He kept working and got the opportunity and just started knocking out of the park seemingly from day one with several characters. I mean, he's done his Spider-Man stuff is just really fun.
So I haven't read a lot of his Spider-Man stuff.
The last thing of his that I read, of course, he's doing a Spider-Man title now. The last thing I read from him, as far as Spider-Man goes, was he did the brain swap story between Spider-Man and Doc Ock. And on the surface, I hate brain swap stories. I'm like, oh, eye roll. But he did it so well. Mm-hmm. It was real. I mean, he's got enough talent for me personally to make me enjoy something that I am, knee-jerk to not.
Big facts, man. It's just the dude is legendary. And then just to end this conversation, to kind of wrap it up, if you haven't cried today, and you just need to get something out, go read the letter that he wrote to or about George Perez. Yeah, mm-hmm. That's in the back of this book. I made it about halfway down the first column and had to stop. Because I was like, okay, I'm gonna just get choked up. I was just like, I need to pause for the cause. I just wasn't in a place where I could read that. The love and the respect that he has for George Perez it just shines through, man.
Yeah, I read that.
Yeah, just got me right here in the throat. Just grabbed a hold of that vocal cord and just hung in there for a second and choked me up for a little bit. So, I love George Perez. I've got George Perez art right behind me, sitting on the bookshelf and stuff like that. He surrounds my world, and George Perez and just it's such a fingerprint on the industry, and especially with Peter David's work. So I love the love they have for each other. So yeah, man, I can't, if you have missed any of the Maestro stuff, if you're listening to this and you're like, well, should I go pick it up? The answer is undoubtedly yes. Go read, read it in real time. Go read Future Imperfect first. That was when it was published. Go check that out, and then go revisit it. Go read the Maestro stuff and see where he's going and what he's doing with it. And then grab this first issue at a comic shop near you, because it's going to be well worth your time. I'm going to have to go back and reread it. I feel like there's seeds in each of these things. There's so much in these first issues of these miniseries that he's laying out. I just want to go back and read it multiple times. Yeah. Well, tell me about something you read this week, Matt. What did you check out?
So I recently discovered that Joe Kubert, one of the giants of the industry, one of the major influencers of the comic book industry going back decades. I learned that he did a 6-issue run in the 90s. It was 93, 94 of the Punisher Warzone series. So I went back and picked up the trade paperback because I was just fascinated that he did this run. So I had to see what his take on a Punisher story was like. It was written by Chuck Dixon, but Joe Kubert did the pencils and the inks. Now the colors were done by Joe Rosas. So back at this time, in this 90s era, The Punisher was the #1 selling book for Marvel. And that's why Joe Kubert is on it, is frankly, his page rate could be justified. And it was great to go back and look at this at a Joe Kubert that was late in his career. Most of his time was spent at the Joe Kubert Art School that I've heard a lot of people talk about that have gone through. Really interesting to hear the story of the Joe Kubert School and what that looked like, both as an experience as a physical environment. The building itself is even really interesting to hear about. Joe Kubert most famously did a lot of Sergeant Rock stuff. He had a run on Hawkman that was very influential. Those are the big two that he's probably the most well known for. This was great to read. It's a very simple story, as all good Punisher stories are. This is the day back when Punisher was still working with his partner Microchip, but he is in pursuit of some Russian gangsters that have come to America post the fall of the Soviet Union to sell guns and drugs. And the Punisher does what the Punisher does, but he also runs up against a Russian who's also a murdering vigilantes like Frank Castle. So they inevitably team up because they have similar interests. But the layouts are great. The watching an old school master do a contemporary work like Punisher is really interesting to me. So I recommend going back and reading this because it's an easy to read, simple story. It's a very ground level crime story. Old school Punisher before Garth Ennis really breathed new life into the character. This run back in the 90s that Chuck Dixon was writing was undoubtedly some of the absolute best Punisher stuff. Even though, at the time, and going back, I don't like the idea of Punisher having Microchip as a teammate, but it was done as well as I think it could have been, frankly. But the Punisher is just as lethal, as he could be, given the time and what they could get away with in mainstream comics. It's just a good crime story, frankly. It's just a really good crime story. And experiencing Joe Kubert's artwork, knowing who he is and what he meant to comic books, I think it's, for that reason alone, it's worth taking a look at. But if you have any interest in a Punisher story, this is definitely one not to miss. A lot of these old 90s, this Warzone series had a lot of really good runs in it. Best Punisher stuff since the original Punisher miniseries launched. And you had, this is called Punisher River of Blood. And you have it's called the Punisher Circle of Blood. Very good shot, really surprisingly violent in what they got away with in a Punisher story for the time, going back into those late 90s, mid to late 80s. But it's nice to go back and read these every once in a while and find the good ones, because there was the Punisher got really lame for a while. He got really watered down, started teaming up with people, and they tried to make him more heroic and less vigilante. So Chuck Dixon, of all the Chuck Dixon stuff I've not read anything where he came across that way. He was writing the Punisher as a lethal street vigilante, not without any heroic bone in his body, to speak.
Right.
So yeah, this is a great find. You're cheap. You can get it on eBay, for less than the cover price. So I was going to buy the individual issues, but since Joe Kubert was the artist on them, they're priced a little higher than I want to pay for them.
Yeah.
But it would have been nice to go back and look at them in that original newsprint. So one thing I really wish I could have seen is the original newsprint version of the artwork. Because Joe, it's interesting, these old guys, a lot of them did what they did specifically because they knew how it would look on newsprint.
Right, yep.
So it would have been nice to see. It would be nice to see it that way versus the satin or slick version pages, because it just comes across differently.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things like when they reprint stuff like that, I'm always curious why they don't use, when they use glossy paper for this old newsprint stuff, you can still reprint stuff in matte coloring without going, without the glossy, like you can, without doing newsprint. So I guess it's more expensive. Um, but yeah, they've done that with several things. I mean, like I get the Savage Sword of Conan omnibuses, and they
Yeah,
do that as well. And
yeah,
that's one of those things. I'm just like, I hate the paper.
yeah,
I hate the paper that y'all print this on, just
yeah,
because it would be so much better with a rougher texture,
yeah.
without that gloss on it.
John Buscema's artwork's a great example. His stuff looks so much
Yeah.
better on newsprint, so much better on newsprint to me anyway. That's obviously subjective, but yeah, I really like John Buscema's old newsprint work better than the slick stuff.
Yeah. Well, and a good example of that is Barry Windsor Smith Monsters from last year. I liked the paper that was printed on. That's not like it doesn't have that really slick. But man, I don't know. There's something weird with Marvel, even on their floppies. Like I don't understand why Marvel prints on the paper that they do. Marvel is the world's worst about, especially their covers. Like I can't hold it. I have to put the bag and board behind it to hold it, because if I hold it with my hands, I'm gonna put fingerprints on it. Like the
Yeah,
ink is
yeah,
gonna fold off of the cover, or off of the page, and there's gonna be a fingerprint.
yeah,
And I don't know what it is, because DC doesn't do it. Dark Horse, Image, IDW, none of those books do it. It's Marvel.
yep,
There's something about their printing process and the paper they use. It doesn't hold the ink.
yeah.
So across the board, they just got issues with their paper. So, well, yeah, I need to go back and revisit this, man. I haven't read most. So I've read a few of the Chuck Dixon stories. I haven't read a lot. I've got some of the Warzone comics. I don't think I've ever actually cracked them open. Um,
That first Warzone run, when JR's drawing the first several, great stuff, man,
yeah.
great stuff. JR's version of Frank Castle looks great. Looks like he's got a nose that looks like it's been broken more times than you can count. I mean, looks like a guy who does what he does. It's really that stuff I like going back and looking at.
Yeah, it's cool, man. You can't. So Chuck Dixon's one of those artists, or one of those writers, that now I kind of have to separate the art from the artist, because of who he is today. And I think we have to have that conversation as part of this conversation, right? But it's just, you can't deny that what he wrote was very compelling stories. It's also one of those weird things, though, because what little Chuck Dixon Punisher I have read, like Chuck Dixon is one of those writers that a lot of the people who, kind of get the wrong idea about the Punisher, like they misconstrue who the Punisher is. They love his stories, and they view them as hyper masculine power fantasies, which on some level they are. But he doesn't mince words. Like you said, he's not creating the Punisher to be writing the Punisher as a hero. It's so hard to me to understand how the work that Chuck Dixon did with the Punisher flies over so many people's heads, and they idolize him, or they put him up on a golden pedestal, because it's kind of like people who miss the point of Fight Club. I just don't get it.
Oh, that yeah, you'll have that with any. You have that. You're always going to have that. People don't understand what's really going on. That's why you have people who idolize the character of Rorschach in Watchmen.
Yeah.
Same thing. I mean, you're always going to have the people that can't see what's really going on.
Yeah.
No matter what it is.
That's true. It's just the struggle's real for me when it comes to that kind of stuff, because I do want to appreciate the thing on its merits, but I'm just like, oh, like I forgot about this dude. So, and just everything that comes out of him. Well, since you went old school Marvel, I'm going to drop some new DC. We're going to be big two this week. Kind of. Mine's not a mainstream big two character, but I got caught up on the milestone stuff this past week. I've been letting it build up a little bit. So I got caught up on Icon and Rocket, and the book I'm going to talk about, which is issue 5 of the Static book. This is written by Vita Ayala, and this is drawn by Nicholas Draper Ivy. That is, I'm assuming the quote unquote first season is going to be 6 issues long. And this brings us to the culmination of a few things. And man, I've loved this resurgence. Like, I love the old milestone books to begin with. I love exactly what they were and what they did. And they are just, to me, doing a phenomenal job bringing these characters back to the forefront, and playing with them and giving them like a new fresh look and a fresh taste of who they are. And because because the books, like, they do feature these young characters of color, and they were invented by people who wanted to make books for Black kids, like, just flat out, they were like, hey, we want to see ourselves in these books, let's do this, let's make our own superhero stories. They do a really good job of reflecting the world as we see it, like the world around us now. Like the impetus of all of these milestone characters getting their powers, they were at a Black Lives Matter rally and essentially were gassed, by the government, and they used this gas that was not supposed to be used, and it ended up giving all these kids powers. They call them the Bang Babies, which is a really unfortunate phrase. But that's just what they're calling them. So in this issue, the government has been rounding up all of these super powered kids that got their powers from being gassed, and they've basically imprisoned them all in this high tech facility. I don't, without a, for lack of a better word. And you always have those, those people that will fight against their own interests. So one of the things the government has done is they've actually wrapped up some of these kids, and pulled them over to their side. And so you have this character who is presented as the villain, this dude named Hot Streak, who has fire powers, that's juxtaposed to Static, just betraying everybody who's just like him, because he thinks that he's going to get the leg up. Like, he thinks it's going to benefit him. And like, these people aren't going to just turn around and do the same thing to him when he's no longer useful. And so it culminates with Static and Hot Streak in this facility trying to break these kids out. And Static has got his ass whipped, man. Like, the dude is in rough shape. Firestorm has put it on him. But part of his powers, it's really cool. I don't always like it when writers do this. They try to give a scientific explanation to powers.
Oh yeah.
So I 9 times out of 10, I don't like it. They did something, Vita Aeolia did something really cool in this story, and she doesn't explain how the powers work, but she does say essentially for his Static powers to manifest, to manifest this electricity, it drains his body of electrolytes, and it drains his body of glucose, because that's how your body produces energy. It uses glucose, the Krebs cycle. It goes into some biology. And all of his powers are based off of his body's consumption of energy, of these sugars that he has to take in. So he's kind of have to constantly taking in glucose. So one of his friends is giving him these glucose pills, these sugar pills. And so at the very last minute, he starts popping them. And it ramps his body up, and his body's healing factor kicks in, and his energy levels go way up, and he's able to produce a whole lot of electricity. And my man just proceeds to stomp ass. Like, the dude just goes into overdrive, just whips Hot Streak up one side and down the other. And while he's doing this, he's giving some of his partners the room and the time to go through and to break into this facility and to start freeing some of these other kids. And as they get to them, they, these are smart aleck kids, man. These are people who, they're not all on the same page. They don't like what they're doing. And they don't trust anybody. Naturally speaking, they don't trust anybody. I mean, these kids are sitting in a cell, and they have powers because of what the government did. They're mistreated, almost like the mutants are mistreated by humans over in X-Men. So one of Static's friends, who is leading this group, is a unpowered young gay Black man that none of these people that he's trying to free like him. They're all like, what do you have in this? Why are you here? What stake are you doing? We don't trust you. We don't want anything to do with you. Just, F off and leave us alone. But he's not going to let it get down. Like, he's not letting it break him. He has a stand-up moment where he's like, hey, like, look, you don't know what I face on a daily basis without powers, and I'm here helping you. I'm here standing up to help benefit you at my own detriment. So maybe just chill out and take a step back and look at the bigger picture here. Look at what we can do together. It's a really cool way of roping these kids into the same side, showing how they can help each other, and they can benefit from one another, and how they can push forward for these causes that they care about. By the end of the story, Static is, he's gotten to all of these other kids, and they've gotten them out of their shells and their cells and stuff like that, but they all have these power dampeners on it. Static has to use his powers to very delicately, almost like a scalpel, go in and take these little nano chips out of these kids' necks that frees up their ability to use their powers. They're kind of like dampeners. But in this story where we've seen Static, basically act as a sledgehammer, these powers are new for him. He hasn't controlled them all that long. He's still trying to figure things out. For him to go from this battle with Hot Streak, where he was just unleashing everything, to dialing his power down and using it in a very subtle way, a very pinpoint way, to free these people and to get these power dampeners out, it's a feat in and of itself. And it was very interesting to see how the artist and the writer like managed your expectations as a reader, because when you talk about it, it's not nearly as exciting as seeing somebody use a little bitty spark to pop off a microchip out of somebody's neck doesn't sound nearly as kinetic or exciting as enticing as seeing this young dude just unleash hell like a lightning bolts at his enemies. But the way that they do it, like, it's got you on the edge of your seat, man. Like they rope you in and they pull you front and center, and they use the smallness of it. They use the in this moment and the threat of it to kind of you just have to watch, and each panel by panel they walk you through it. And by the end of it, 90% of these kids are really happy, and they're excited about being out of the cells and everything. But it wouldn't be a penultimate issue if there wasn't just a slight twist. And some of these kids aren't playing on their team, and now they've kind of got them cornered. So, again, like the entire Milestone series has been super fun. If you're not reading Icon and Rocket, Icon's Black Superman. There's a scene in the new book where he's like getting information out of somebody, and like he covers one eye and then a laser beams out of the other, and it goes right on this side of their head. He's like, all right, the next one's this other eye. Just wanted to let you know where it's going to land. And they wrap in together. Now, I will say that if I had a complaint, my complaint is timing. This is a series, like all of these play in together. Issue 5 of Icon and Rocket, after half of the book, it jumps forward and it takes place after issue 5 of this, which is not sold yet. So that's where I say I think the last issue is going to be issue 6 of this miniseries of the season 1. It hadn't hit the stands yet. Issue 5 of Icon and Rocket actually picks up where issue 6 is apparently going to leave off. So that's the only nitpick I have for it. But dude, like, one thing you hear all the time is people, wrongly in my opinion, I just want to say that, but they juxtapose manga art with American comic art, and they say, look, this is, the manga art is so much more energetic. It's so much more, there's so much more momentum. It's got so much more weight to it. It's more exciting when you look at it, which I disagree with personally. I think they each have their own merits, but people love to kind of juxtapose those two things wrongly. But I mean, just look at the art in this book, man. Like, this is some incredibly exciting art. It is new. It's fresh. It just leaps off of the page. It's got this, it literally crackles. I mean, so much of this book has to do with the visages of electricity. It literally crackles. There's so much stuff going on with it. The coloring is impeccable. I don't see how you don't look at these pages and just smile, especially if you're a young reader. If you're somebody who is, if you're a younger teenager, and you're into hip hop culture, and you're into graffiti culture, and you're into just kind of everything we know that involves, that world, this especially this Afrocentric art styles, they're all built into this book, man. And they just look impeccable. One of my favorite scenes from this book is this right here. It all just works together. They use this digitization to show how Static is, not only is he able to shoot lightning bolts and everything, but he can actually take control of anything with copper in it to make it do what he needs it to do. So in some sense, he can just electrify the copper wiring and all these computer systems and everywhere around him, and reach in and grapple and use them as tendrils, so to speak. And I've never seen that before as far as in the Milestone stuff goes. So it's just super fun. So if you're looking for a new book, maybe you want to jump into some DC stuff, or maybe you just missed the Milestone stuff, or you've got like a younger person in your life who you want to get like to read comics, check this out, because these are incredibly young. They're incredibly fresh. They're brand new. You don't have to have a lot of context to go in them. It's, if they like it, then yeah, bring them back to the McDuffie stuff. Go back old school and read all the Icon and Rocket stuff that came before. Read the Static Shock, stuff that came before. There's one scene in here where the person's wearing a Dwayne McDuffie jersey, and I just smiled from ear to ear. So like those roots are there. That connectivity, what came before, is there. But again, they're using the modern world as we know it to reflect a current event, to reflect a current atmosphere of that these young people are contending with. So highly recommend it, man. I think everybody should check it out. Just jump on it, dude, because it's so good. It'll treat you all kinds of ways.
Nice.
And that's my book, man. Again, like get into all of it. Like I'm like Static is definitely my favorite, but each and every issue of these things, each new episode, so to speak, of this world that they're inventing, is just cool. Like it really is. Like I've fallen in love with these characters, and I didn't expect to. So, well, all right, man. Well, that's my book of the week. Did I convince you? Just curious.
No, I can't lie. I tried the Milestone stuff, and I don't remember reading the original Milestone stuff when it came out.
Yeah.
But the new stuff I tried, it just wasn't for me. And it was because it was a kid's high school book.
Right.
And I don't read any books that are kid centric, that are the main character is a child told from a child's perspective, especially you put that kid in school, and you want me to lose interest in a story real quick. You tell me a story about a kid in school. It's not why I'm here.
I feel that, man. Yeah, because you never were like, back when I would talk about Champions and stuff too, that was never your cup of tea.
Yeah, no. I mean, the Runaways, Champions, anything. I mean, yeah. I've never been able to read Teen Titans. I just can't do the young kids books.
That's funny. As much as I do love these, like I love these, I've never finished. And as much as I love George Perez, I've never finished the Teen Titans.
Really?
I need to. They have the omnibuy of those things available, and at some point, of course, I've got like 18 different omnibuses that I have now that I need to read that I haven't gotten to yet. At some point, I'm gonna have to check them out.
Yeah. They're hugely successful, very popular. I understand that. It's just, everything's not for everybody, and that's just one of those. It's not for me.
Well, no, I mean, like Garth Ennis's War Stories. That's not for everyone, and you love them. I mean, it's just like you have a particular set of things that you really like. But then again, it surprises me every once in a while when you fall in love with books that I just don't think that you would that you would care for. Like if I were to bet, case in point, I didn't think that you would have loved the Barbarian book from Berserker or Berserk. I didn't think that you would like that.
I didn't like that book at all.
No. What am I thinking of? The book with the talking axe.
Oh, Barbaric.
Barbaric. Yeah. When I first read that first issue, I didn't think you would like it at all because it was so humorous. Like it was taking a barbarian and just throwing a joke in there. But like you fell in love with that book.
Oh yeah. I can't wait for that one to start back up again.
Yeah. Somebody over on one of the other Facebook groups that I'm a part of and join, or it might have been the EOC Slack actually. They were talking about having found that book and really liked it. So I got to direct them towards some of the episodes that we talked about it on. Nice. Had to go back and find them. So hopefully, they'll go listen to those. But I think that's just part of it, man. It's one of those things. It's like, it's okay not to like something, depending on the reason. I think people get hung up on that. But then again, you also have people who just love to hate things, and you're not that either. Thankfully. Right. And neither am I. We just don't do that. So. Well, all right, man. We ready to bring this thing home?
Yeah, I think so.
All right, let's do that. So if you have enjoyed this, me stumbling over my words and being very off kilter because I'm running behind today, listen to some of our other episodes. Hopefully you'll enjoy those more where I'm not obviously off balance. And we encourage you to do so. Just go wherever the podcasts are located. If you found it here, whatever you found it on should have our old episodes. If you like what you hear, though, please leave us a rating and review if you're able to, and come join us on our social media pages. We've got our Facebook Facebook group that people are always posting memes and Kickstarter stuff, and I'll post articles and we'll talk about this, that, and the other. A friend of ours is a librarian from Northwest Arkansas, and she has been posting some really incredible stuff about what's been going on in the aftermath of a Tennessee school trying to ban mouse, and talking about the different programs and stuff that our public libraries serve. So there's some really cool conversations happening over in those parts of the world. You can also check out our Instagram and our Twitter page. We're at SFG Podcast on both of those. Full disclosure, have been wrapped up in law school and have not gotten nearly as much stuff posted on those two platforms as I would like to. But we really do try to stay on top of things and show you what we think is cool. For no other reason than we enjoy it, man. We like seeing it, and we think you will too. So follow us on both of those platforms. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, maybe you're doing a Kickstarter book, maybe you're wanting to launch something and get ahead, maybe have us talk about it on the show so our listeners can know about it. Shoot us an email at southernfriedgeekery@gmail.com. We will be glad to answer you. In the meantime, next week on Tuesday and Wednesday, that's when the new comics come out. That's when we get the things that we are really excited about. So I am curious, Matt, what is hitting the shelves next week that you want to pick up?
To nobody's surprise, I'm sure, I'm looking forward to, from Aftershock, The Lion and the Eagle. This is by Garth Ennis, PJ Holden, and the covers by Tim Bradstreet. So this is a mini-series, takes place in 1944, and Imperial Japan still commands most of Asia. Determined to regain their hold on Burma, the British send a special forces unit, the Chindits, deep behind Japanese lines. I did not know this was coming out until I read about this on the previews for this week.
Yeah, it sounds
how this slipped by me. So luckily I've secured a copy for this week, and hopefully I can get the whole series, because I love war stories, just traditional war stories. Especially Garth Ennis is a master at them.
Yeah.
And he's not done any in a while. So I'm really looking forward to this. And jungle warfare specifically is a fascinating part of warfare altogether. That's why Vietnam is such a fascinating war to me specifically. So I'm really looking forward to this.
Well, dude, I'm glad you found that. That sounds right up your alley. I actually saw a preview for something that Garth Ennis is going to be writing, and thought about you, and now I can't think of what it is. I have to go see if I can find that and share it with you and post it on our page. Because when it comes to Garth Ennis writing war, like, that's just, I know when you're going to see it, it's going to make you smile. So
yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
I think that I want to grab a book from a little publisher that have gotten to be some fairly good friends of ours. And that the book is called Wraith, and it comes from Scout Comics. It comes from their imprint Black Caravan. So Wraith is the story of a young skateboarder, a guy named Grom, who basically a prank goes wrong and he dies. He was skating on a half pipe and somebody messed with his gear and it killed him. But what his killers don't know is that on this particular skate park, the half pipe was built on cursed land, and now the curse is going to come for them. So essentially, our buddy Grom is basically a zombie skater, and it's time to skate or die. So this looks incredibly cool. The cover shows our buddy, the zombie Grom, on a skateboard that is actually a monster as well, doing an ollie. And then it's written by Tristan Gallagher with Kristen DeBari is the artist on it, and it just looks really cool. Simon Go does some of the color work on this, though. But if you're not familiar with Scout Comics, go check them out. They do some really cool work. Really, really cool little imprint, or the little small publisher that deserves your attention. We almost spoke about a Scout book this week, got edged out just a little bit. I am going to try to talk about it next week on the show, just as far as my book of the week goes. So
nice.
Actually, no, next week's not our chaos episode, right? Is it? I don't think so. No, it's not. We still got time. And man, if that's everything, I guess we should say today is the February 13th. Tomorrow is the day of love. So, and also the amazing football night. So
the corporate day of love.
The corporate day of love. I like love. So if it gets me, if it gets me a little love, the corporate can force it. Like maybe we can get like a few more of those. So like, cause love's a good thing, especially the kind of love I'm talking about. I likes it. You got any plans?
Watch the big game.
Nice. Yeah, I'm gonna do that tonight, and then go into a nice little fancy Italian place tomorrow night for Din Din to celebrate. So
nice.
That's my plan. So if nothing further, everybody, go find somebody to love, hug them, have a great day, root for your team tonight. If your team wins, congratulations. If it doesn't, well, that's just part of the deal. Root for them next year. My team's not even showing up to the game. So, think about how I feel, which I'm the real victim here, as the lifelong Cowboys fan. But man, if nothing further, go forth this week and love some comics.
Go sport ball.
Woohoo!